Welcome everyone. My name is Julia. I use she, her pronouns, and I live on Wabanaki land. A quick visual description is that I'm a Palestinian American with short brown hair, clear glasses, and a dark gray shirt. My background is the Palestinian flag with the Centering Palestine logo on it. We've got that packet link in the chat. Go ahead and open that up so you can follow along. You can also avoid any Zoom glitches. You'll see all the links there and everything you might need to click on. This event is organized by many different volunteers, including Palestinian, Jewish, and ally contributors. I'm going to briefly go over our community agreements, then we'll do the news section. During the news section, we pause Zoom admittance just because we put that news content warning in place. Once it's over, we let folks get back in if they have arrived late. So if you ever do come late and get stuck in the waiting room, don't worry about it. We will let you in as soon as we can. Let's go over the short version of the community agreements. You're welcome to look at the full version that's been posted in the chat. So we're a COVID cautious group, and we ask that attendees be respectful of that intersection. What that means is that we don't talk about organizing or protesting in ways that don't take really important accessibility measures like COVID precautions. We are, of course, a pro-Palestine group. We support the liberation of Palestine and are anti-Zionist. We do not tolerate anti-Semitism or Islamophobia of any kind. We are anti-Zionist, and anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. Zionism is a settler colonial nationalist movement. Geopolitical powers like the US and Israeli governments have tried to make Zionism and Jewishness synonymous, but this is inaccurate and only serves to further harm Jewish and Palestinian communities. We center marginalized voices. We use content warnings when appropriate. In terms of chat etiquette, we welcome y'all to use the chat. You're always so polite. You're welcome to ask questions. We just ask that our conversations in the chat stay focused on the topic and task at hand. With that, let's put our news content warning in place. We have a lot of awesome education and news and action to get to. So if you would like to turn down your volume now, if you don't want to hear it, that's okay. Go ahead. We'll put in the chat when we're done. Also, if you have kids in earshot, our news section especially is not particularly kid-friendly. Okay, so our first topic today is day 228, and at least 36,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since October, and another 10,000 are still missing. So that number is really probably much, much higher. May 15th, just a few days ago, marked the 76th anniversary of the Nakba, or catastrophe. The 1948 Nakba resulted in the colonization of 78% of the Palestinian homeland and 80% of the people at that time. Not only is Nakba Day a day of mourning, but it's also a day of renewal of the struggle to end genocide in Palestine. I wanted to do kind of a summary of Palestine updates from Gaza. The UN says that 800,000 people have fled Rafah in southern Gaza as Israel continues to kill dozens. Israel continues to bombard North Gaza as well, jeopardizing the catastrophically slim resources and few remaining hospitals in that area. There's another headline. A recently released Palestinian prisoner and cancer patient has sadly died as a result of Israeli medical negligence in captivity. Unfortunately, this is an all too common story. The US Army was seen bringing military equipment in through the port they built in Gaza. Unfortunately, this is not surprising to most of us, but it does reveal the true intentions behind placing that port there. Lastly, in a very moving letter, US doctor Adam Hamway refused to leave his post in Gaza despite evacuation orders, saying that he will not abandon his team, and he fears that all the staff and patients in the hospital, as well as the civilians in the area, will soon meet the same fate other Gazan hospitals have and essentially be massacred. Extremely moving letter, very, very scary situation for the both the Palestinian and the international aid workers in Gaza right now. Moving on to topic 4. This is really big news in the last 48 hours. The ICC, so that's the International Criminal Court, has issued arrest warrants for the leaders of Israel and Hamas. Now, while Hamas has objected to being likened to Israel, it doesn't yet change the existing treatment of them by other countries. However, it is a really big statement that Netanyahu and Gallant now have arrest warrants on them. We have yet to see if the international community, especially Israel's besties, aka the Biden administration, will actually be able to get it together enough to arrest these leaders, but this is a really big step. Speaking of potential fascism, Israeli officials have seized the Associated Press's equipment and taken down a live feed of northern Gaza, citing their new media law. This is the media law that shut down Al Jazeera. AP made a very strong statement. This is just a little quote saying the shutdown was not based on the content of feed, but rather an abusive use of the country's new foreign broadcaster law. So, again, more blocking of journalists, which is never a good thing. More international news. Just this week in the DRC, there was a failed coup against the president. This included the involvement of several Americans. While the coup was averted, it represents the continuing turmoil in the area. I've also included a post in this section about tech companies you should boycott because they're involved in these horrific human rights abuses in mining for the tech industry in the DRC. So that's a great list to know about. Another extremely major headline, the president, foreign minister, and several other Iranian officials were killed in a helicopter crash. The country has declared 5 days of mourning, and there will be a new election in June to choose the next president. This is one that I haven't seen our mainstream media covering. In, again, more international news, this is a quote I've taken here. As soaring violence and political turmoil grip neighboring Haiti, the Dominican Republic will hold elections on Sunday that have been defined by calls for more crackdown on Haitian migrants and finishing a border wall dividing those countries. I encourage you to read the full article. It's a really important election, and our Western media is not paying much attention. My last topic, sticking to my time tonight, my last topic, I put a good news section in. I felt like we could use one. So I've got just some headlines here. Definitely read the full articles. So the first one, Richmond City becomes the second city to pass a resolution in support of Gaza. Super cool to see that happening. And it was a good margin. It was like 4-1 or 5-1, something like that. The next headline, a British Palestinian professor has announced that he will run in the next general election in the UK, citing his support of Palestine and his disappointment with his political party. The last article, just click on it when you have a sec. It is so sweet. A grandmother cycled up a mountain, a really steep, intense mountain, to raise 13,000 pounds, I think, because this was in the UK, in charity funds for Gaza. Super sweet story if you need something a little uplifting. With that, our content warning is lifted. So we're going to dive into some really important action.
My name is Kevin. I use he or they pronouns. I'm calling from Muskogee land. And a quick visual description of me. I have glasses, dark brown hair, and I'm white, Ashkenazi, and mixed, most likely mostly British Isles. So we're going to go ahead and do our education section. And we are focusing in on Palestinians held in small prisons by Israel. Some of the slides at the beginning are actually here for reference. So, for example, this is something you can read on your own. It's just a note on the title. Basically, what it boils down to is big prison refers to Palestine as a whole under Israeli occupation, whereas small prison refers to specific prison complexes. There are a few slides here that are providing some legal background. These are for reference. And basically what they cover is that prison transfer inside Israel, even for brief periods, is actually unlawful. It violates law, international law. There's also international law regarding enforced disappearance. There's a specific law that Defense of Children International Palestine has noted. Israel has not ratified this specific convention or law, but Defense of Children International Palestine does point out that customary international law still applies to Israel. And then there's a little bit of background on Israel's unlawful combatants law. So it was passed in 2002 and then expanded upon at the end of last year. Basically, what it boils down to is it facilitates an increase in the number of Palestinians held in small prisons, and it also facilitates disappearances. Okay, so then into what is actually happening. There are increased numbers in small prisons. On May 15th, Al Jazeera reported 8,745 detentions of Palestinians since October 7th. That number does not include people detained from Gaza. Those numbers are unknown. And of almost 9,000 Palestinians arrested from the West Bank or within 1948 boundaries, 615 of them are children, 75 are journalists, and 18 have died in prison. Plus 972, which we've mentioned a few times in here, also reported that by March 2024, the Israeli Prison Service had 9,077 Palestinian security prisoners, and of those, 3,582 were under administrative detention, and so they had not had a charge or a trial. The slide that talks about the unlawful combatants law provides some more background on that and context for understanding that last little bit of information. In terms of disappearances, the Palestinian Return Center reported on April 16th that Israeli authorities have acknowledged classifying 849 detainees from the Gaza Strip as unlawful combatants. It has been revealed that the majority of detainees from Gaza are not combatants, but civilians, including women, and they are treated and apparently classified as unlawful combatants, not even receiving the rights of combatants. And then bold is actually added here. Israel refuses to disclose their names and places of detention and does not allow visits to them. There is an increasing fear that they are being held in inhumane and harsh conditions that amount to torture without supervision and without access to a lawyer, and they are tried as unlawful combatants. So disappearances of Palestinians, definite concern. The next few slides have a specific content warning as well. The next few slides are going to discuss inhumane treatment of prisoners across ages, sexual abuse, and experiences of child prisoners. All right, we're going to go into the content warning slides now. So, inhumane treatment. We want to talk a little bit about illegal and degrading transfer from Gaza. Again, you'll note one of the first slides contains some references about how transfer is illegal. Also, another note, there's actually no Israeli legal code that explicitly prohibits torture. In December, photographs emerged of thousands of Palestinians who were arrested by Israeli forces in Gaza, stripped naked and handcuffed, and transported by truck to facilities in Israel. After the shocking images were exposed, Israeli officials admitted that approximately 90% of the detainees were civilians unaffiliated with any militant groups. That's an excerpt from Plus 972. And CNN also found corroboration between prisoner testimonies of being transported in trucks after being stripped to their underwear, with photos on Israeli soldier social media accounts. There's also concern about isolation and other abuses. So Basil Faraj, writing with Al-Shabaka, notes that Israel employs numerous measures designed to entirely isolate prisoners, including banning family visitations and restricting lawyer visits. Other measures used by the Israel Prison Service include cutting access to water and electricity, providing inadequate and insufficient food, closing prison canteens, confiscating prisoners' belongings, and denying medical care, further exacerbating its policy of systemic medical negligence. The CNN report that was referenced last week and also on the previous slide also describes other forms of torture and degrading treatment, including unqualified personnel performing medical procedures on prisoners without anesthesia and being urged to not sign medical documents so as to not leave a paper trail. Okay, we're going to have a break after this slide. In terms of sexual abuse, so just a caveat, the first link here goes to a report from Heart to Grow. And there's a trigger warning on that specific report that is actually next to the material in the session packet. So you do see it. And it is also, in the chat, this specific trigger warning. So it's not in this slide, but just be aware of that if you are clicking on that link. In terms of this slide, clinical psychologist Daniel Washad describes the range of sexual violence against Palestinian male prisoners as ranging from verbal sexual harassment, forced nudity, to severe forms of genital violence, such as squeezing the scrotum, rape, genital mutilation, and castration. This was in a study that included thousands of testimonies, where 93% of the testimonies were directly from Palestinians that had been imprisoned. In these studies, it was also found that over 60% of these Palestinian prisoners, who were boys and men, experienced multiple forms of sexual assault and sexual torture while in Israeli detention. And Ahmed Tamimi, author of They Called Me Lioness, describes ongoing incidents of sexual harassment during her imprisonment as a 16-year-old. In 2002, the World Organization Against Torture issued a statement against Israel for inappropriately forcing Palestinian female prisoners to strip in front of male guards during searches, even if the prisoners were legal minors. And I'll just also note that Suraj Auda, a Palestinian journalist who was abducted, said he was forced to eat moldy food. Okay, let's take a pause to reorient. So our content warning is still in effect, but we just covered some pretty hefty material. So let's go ahead and take a minute and pause for a grounding break. How many different animals can you think of right now? We'll go ahead and do a minute on this. You can make a list and tally, and then we'll go on the next slides. But we do want to definitely modulate our working for this section. Sure, you can definitely put your animals in the chat if you want. Right, let's see. So people have shared a few really awesome animals. There's lemurs, cat, giraffe, weasel, capybaras, wombat, bear, lion, dolphin, sparrow, newt, cheetah, ducks, heron, blackbird, goldfinches. Somebody's looking at their bunny who's sleeping in her bed, and they're thinking of bunnies. Another person also had bunnies on their list. Ravens and crows, gorillas, bonobos, chimpanzees, dogs, capybaras, jellyfish, dolphin, stingray, chicken, duck, zebra. Zebras. Somebody else loves zebras. Horse, sheep, zebra, goldfish, deer, owl, goose, turtles, tiger, lion, leopard, jaguar, cougar, grizzly bear, mockingbird, crow, bat, fox, flamingo, cardinal, blue jay, koala, kangaroo, stubby, skunk. Okay, hopefully that was a good grounding, and we're almost done here. The comment warning is still in effect. Okay, so, and then we have another grounding afterwards too. So we just want to also highlight families being denied connection, closure, and dignity. Some of you may have seen this in the news. On April 7th, Walid Daqqa was pronounced dead after having cancer. Adallah, the Legal Center for Minority Rights in Israel, notes that in addition to barring Daqqa's family from visiting him in prison for over 6 months, despite his terminal condition, the Israeli authorities failed to notify the family that he had been transferred to hospital as his condition deteriorated, and did not allow them to visit him in hospital before his death. Additionally, Israel failed to inform the family of Daqqa's death or to provide them with a death certificate. Instead, the police assaulted the family and visitors, paying condolences at their home, and forcibly dismantled their mourning tent. Adallah noted that the authorities intended to retain the body of Walid Daqqa until at least May 5th to allow them to reconsider and potentially change their overarching policy regarding the withholding of bodies of deceased prisoners who are citizens of Israel and who died in Israeli custody. The respondents indicated that this policy review is required due to a change in the current reality, citing, quote, radical change in circumstances for the worse since, well, October 7th, 2023. It's written 7 October 2023, end quote. They further noted that completing this review required the involvement of security officials, including those dealing with hostages who they stated were under considerable pressure during the war. In other words, the state is considering withholding the bodies of Israeli citizens for potential use as leverage in future negotiations with Hamas. And Plus 972 reports that 27 or more Gazans have died in Israeli military prisons since October 7th. And there are questions about children imprisoned by Israel as well. While news media has reported Israeli forces detaining and torturing Palestinian men, women, and children in the Gaza Strip, little to no information is available about these detainees, their locations, or when they will be released. Israeli soldiers detained a Palestinian family from their home in the Al Zaytun neighborhood of Gaza City, according to Euromed Human Rights Monitor. The father was eventually released while Israeli forces continued detaining his wife and 2 children, ages 4 years and 6 months. The Israeli forces told the father that his children would be assessed to confirm they are not Israeli hostages. This claim was repeated with the parents of a 12-year-old Palestinian girl, according to Euromed Human Rights Monitor in the same report. Despite the fact that the girl spoke Arabic and was with her parents, Israeli forces detained her under the false pretense that she was an Israeli hostage. So this, for me, raises a question of, is this an excuse to detain or steal children? We know that stealing children is something that has occurred in connection to genocide for many different peoples. It does not appear that it's something that Israel is doing systematically, at least. So it may be that their intent really is to detain. But either way, this is all just incredibly sketchy. Okay, so thank you all. I know this is really heavy material this week, so thanks for bearing with us here. And we have another grounding. So let's reorient. Take some time and say, think, what is your name? Your full name. What is your age? Where are you right now? What does it look like? Do you taste anything right now? Do you smell anything right now? What is one thing you see? What is one thing you hear? What can you detect right now with your sense of touch? All right. So with that, we'll wrap our content warnings. This last slide just talks about how after people are released, they can end up being harassed. And this last slide here is also here for reference. You can go through this more on your own, but it's basically just a summary of what different Palestinian organizations are asking for on the topic of Palestinian detainees. All right. Thank you all so much. Next week, we will be talking about disability justice for Palestine. Please feel free to fill out our feedback form that's going in chat. And in the meanwhile, please enjoy Me Your Hobby by Dom. Also, just to note, you will see it spelled different ways due to differences in transliteration. And Mick RF has posted the song with a non-graphic image and English translation of lyrics on YouTube.